We are now live.
Okay, real quick, Halsey.
Yep.
Description of what what you do, who you are, so on and so forth. Just quick, like 1 minute description.
So my name is Halsey English. I run a YouTube channel called Radio Free America. It's at Halsey English on YouTube. I also run Twitter Spaces at Real Halsey E on Twitter. I'm a geopolitical analyst. I've been studying specifically the Middle East, Europe, and the Far East for more than 20 years now. I have an MBA in global economics. And in addition to the physical work I do, I also do counterterror planning for religious institutions.
All right, and so as shown by that description, you have some experience and some uh, insight into the topics that we're going to be discussing tonight. Which the first main topic that we're going to be covering is the American-Israeli relationship, and
Sure.
hot button topic that everybody is super for or against. Everybody became an American Israeli expert overnight. Let's be completely honest. But of course, there's those who have been screaming about it for years that are like, look, we're right, and then they just put their foot in their mouth all the time. So it is what it is, unfortunately.
Hmm.
Uh, so one of the first topics, because this is there's two main topics that always get brought up, especially by the Groiper crowd, and I can safely say everybody here fucking despise Groipers.
Yep.
Um, Two of the topics that they like to bring up. The one topic that I want to talk about, because the second topic I just don't care about at this point in time, given the information that you know has been not only confirmed about the USS Liberty, but also the fact that a lot of the talking points that these idiots like to bring up have been completely debunked. But what I really want to talk about is the economics involved with America and Israel, because everybody likes to talk about all the money and all the aid that the U.S. gives to Israel, but in reality, that's not the full story. This isn't like oh hey, we're giving aid to this particular program and that money is only being used for that program. This is a little more special in how it's conducted and how it's handled. So why don't you go ahead and just give a rundown of how the U.S. gives money to Israel, and then what Israel is doing with said money.
Sure. So, this is your podcast, right? So this is from a historical basis. You want me to I can tell you how it works now, but I can also tell you where it started from and
Oh yeah,
why it is.
give me the full birth of it.
Okay, so if you listen to all of the newest people, um, that are now, as you said, the newest crowd of Israeli, armchair experts, they act like basically history began in around like 95, 2000, and they ignore everything that happened before that because after all, that would require reading a book or doing something difficult, which they don't like to do. So America, although it seems that this isn't true, it's actually incredibly true, was not the closest ally of Israel until the late 60s. They didn't have any military arrangements. There were no financial arrangements between the country. In fact, JFK was the first president from America that agreed to even sell a weapon system to Israel. Up until that, the primary allies of Israel were Britain and France,
Right.
and they were dramatically opposed by America. I have to say, because America was opposed to Britain and France exerting control over the Suez Canal, and they felt like this relationship between Britain, France, and Israel was strengthening the bonds between the countries, so they can have general control over the Suez Canal in the advent of a war, or even that it would just start, kind of heading that direction. But there still wasn't American military aid where they were giving any kind of free money to Israel until the late 70s. And that's because in the Six Day War, Israel captured the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt. Now, if you talk to right-wing Israelis or right-wing Americans, they'll say that Jimmy Carter was a complete cuck who forced Israel to give back this huge area of land to Egypt for no reason because he was a pacifist and he wanted to see like everybody hold hands and smile. But the reality of the situation at the time was that for years now, including the Six-Day War, including the 73 Yom Kippur War, Russia had been giving Egypt and Syria the best military equipment they had, and it didn't come close. Like, they weren't able to accomplish really anything in those two wars. So there was a very realistic possibility that Russia was going to give Egypt the bomb, right? They had nothing to lose from it, and America wasn't going to go to nuclear war with Russia over a proxy battle going on in the Middle East. So Jimmy Carter basically stepped in and he brokered a deal. And the deal was Israel would give back the Sinai Peninsula to Egypt, destroy any settlements that had been built there, and Egypt would recognize Israel officially, and there would be a formal peace treaty between the countries. And that's what happened, and it generally went as planned. I mean, there were some bumps, but any kind of treaty like that will have them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But one of the main components of that peace treaty was that America guaranteed that they would allow Israel, that they would provide the means for Israel to maintain what was called a qualitative edge over the Arab countries. And this is where the first kind of military aid package came to be, because obviously America agreed to give Egypt a certain amount of weapons every year. They agreed to give Israel a certain amount of weapons every year. And the ones they gave Israel were just better. Like, there's still certain things that America would never sell to Egypt, even if Egypt wanted to pay for them. And, like AWACS and things like that.
Was this a deal that was supposed to be ongoing like forever, or was there some sort of like sunsetting like date or something where they provide this edge for all time or up until a certain point?
So there was no expiration in the deal. I don't know if anyone assumed that the deal would just go on forever, but they assumed that as peace became more stable in the Middle East, that the deal would be, more renegotiated and things like that. And it was in the 90s. The whole concept of the qualitative edge now is more just that there are certain systems that America will agree to never sell to Egypt or Jordan, right? But they will allow Israel to purchase them. But in I believe it was either the late 90s or early, no, it was in the 90s. They signed the first MOU with Israel, and that means Memorandum of Understanding. Israel, there were some ideas that Israel might join NATO. It's generally a Western country, so no one wanted that because they realized the whole idea of Article 5 being called up against Israel would be a 100% reality. And the idea that all of Europe and America would go to war in the Middle East was just, like, silly. So they made Israel a preferred ally, and they negotiated the first aid package. Now, the ratios are the same, they're just adjusted for inflation, so I'm just going to use the baseline numbers. Israel's typical defense budget every year is about $13 billion. America agreed to provide about, right now it's at $3 billion, but before it was at around $2.5. They provide between $2.5 and $3.5 billion a year towards Israel's defense budget, which is essentially a discount coupon. Because all of that money, there was, up until Obama, they had to spend, I believe it was 80% of the aid had to be spent on American military equipment, and the other 20% could be used for research and development, under the understanding that if the money was used for research and development, America would own the patents to whatever Israel developed with that money. But it was also because of this cooperative agreement that Israel was given access to some of America's most advanced weaponry, so that they could actually work on it. And there's been tons of successes that have come from this. America was going to scrap the F-15 program because it had run its course. Israel had upgraded the F-15 to the F-15I. They figured out that not only is it much better, it's much cheaper to upgrade all the F-15s. Now they're going to be in service for another 15, 20 years. And this became a thing. And in 2000, I want to say 12, no, it was right at the end of his term. It was right around 2015, they signed the second memorandum of understanding for 10 years, which was that Israel would get the $3 billion, but the amount that they could spend on research and development went down. I think it was at like 5 or 10% they were allowed to spend on research and development. The rest goes back to the military-industrial complex here in America. But if you look at the numbers from every country, now every country basically in the Western sphere of influence gets American military aid. Just European countries, they call it something different, right? They call it NATO funding. But most European countries receive more money from America every year for their defense than Israel does. And Egypt and Jordan are very close behind Israel too. But of all of the countries that receive funding from America for the military or base rental or whatever it may be, none of them returns a positive financial return to America except Israel. Because, as I said, America owns the patents on these things. So even if they're only selling them to Israel, they're doing so at a profit. There have been some deals where they were negotiated as they went along, like the Iron Dome. Israel still owns the patent on it, but they partnered with an American company to produce it. So everything that's produced from the Iron Dome is produced in America. By the way, all the patents that Israel gives America, they also have to be manufactured there. So a lot of times when you hear, oh, Congress just approved an extra $20 billion to go to Israel this year, they didn't do that because they're just pro-Israel and felt like it would help. They did that because they're contractually bound for it. When they take over the manufacturing of these weapons, Israel has a clause that says if we're at a time of war, that we can request more immediately because you're not allowing us to manufacture them locally. Otherwise, we would just be manufacturing them 24/7 and stockpiling. So most of the time you hear about that stuff, you hear that they got an extra $20 billion. It means they're sending them more Iron Dome interceptors or more parts for the planes, yeah, things like that. So in the end, people love to go, oh my God, America gives so much money to Israel. But it's to America's benefit that they give all Israel all this stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. Israel benefits by getting access to the best technology on Earth. And the companies that that sell to Israel get real-time R&D against Soviet systems. That's why all the time when you hear about Israel invaded Syria and bombed 10 empty buildings, they weren't there just to stop a military threat. They were there to see if Russian air defense systems would, light up the targets and know that their F-35s or F-15s or anything were in their airspace, or if they could be positively targeted. So this was another benefit that you can't put a monetary amount on. But if tomorrow Israel said, we don't want a penny of the aid anymore, please keep it and spend it on stuff in America, the American government would lose their mind. They would force Israel to take it. It's the benefits. Yeah. The benefit to America far outweighs the money that they spend. And as I said, it's effectively just a discount coupon. Israel still spends $10 billion of their own money on American military goods as well.
Yeah, and it was actually a topic of discussion in an earlier episode. The benefit, it's conservatively 3-1. If you want to be a little more liberal, it's can almost reach 7-1. So, depending on the year, it ranges, but it's a pretty good return on investment overall. And what boggles my mind is that, the people out there that are screaming and shouting about the monetary side of things, like not even the, the support for Israel, but just bitching that, oh, we're giving them too much money for this, that, and the other. It's like, do you not research the numbers? Do you not research what the hell's going on in general? Or
Well, just I mean, if just to put a baseline on it, if you add up the money that America gives to Egypt and Jordan every year, it's more than they give to Israel. Have you ever heard anyone bitch about the money we give to Egypt or Jordan? And we
Yes.
get nothing back for that, by the way.
I have only ever heard one person ever bring it up, and it's only been one person. Do you want to know who that is?
Who?
because Varg or Varg, you're gonna have a fun laugh at this. Phil Labonte.
Based.
He's the only person I've ever heard bring up the money that we give to Egypt. I don't think he's ever. I don't think he's brought up Jordan, but he has brought up the money we give to Egypt, and he's the only person I've ever heard. Only person.
Right. When all's said and done, the people that are against the aid to Israel tend to be against the aid to Israel because they just don't like Jewish people. It has nothing to do with the way that Israel conducts wars. Israel conducts wars at a way that is immeasurable to every other war on the planet that's ever been fought in terms of civilian to combatant ratio. Like, much to my chagrin, of course. But, like, there's no negative that they can point out except where they'll say something like, well, we have people starving in West Virginia, why are we giving money to Israel? Why are we giving money to anybody then? You know, like,
and that would be, at least then, that would be a more principled argument.
To be fair, a lot of people, at least a lot of people have heard from, do make that argument. So I don't think it's only people who don't like Jews. It's also people who just like non-interventionists in general, who just don't like foreign aid. There is that segment who just really dislikes foreign aid as a concept.
Part of that segment?
Who?
You know who's part of that segment? Me.
Fair enough.
I don't believe that we should be giving aid to anybody. And I think that one of the biggest problems that we have in the Middle East is the aid we give to Israel, because it interlocks our countries in a way where Israel's not able to grow up. Right? They're a baby country as it is. They've only been around since 1948. And they've been at war ever since. And they should be developing their own military capabilities, their own manufacturing. These are things that all nations do as they grow up.
Yep.
Right? And I think that the relationship has run its course in terms of America and Israel should be allies. And there should be times where they disagree and times where they do agree. But as I said, if you ever suggested to the American military, even if Israel straight up told the American government, we don't want to have the aid anymore, they would force them to take it.
Well, and like a discussion that you and me have had previously, Halsey, when you were detailing the state of the military-industrial complex in Israel, 2000, I believe it was 2004. You said that they just stopped producing aircraft.
No, that was 1982. That they stopped. They originally had a development program, and they produced a jet called the Kfir. The Kfir it was at the time way better than the Soviet MiGs that were being produced, and was on par with the F-15 program. Wasn't as good, but it was close. And it was also a brand new program. It was based on original Israeli Mirage design, French Mirage designs. But because the aid kicked in and they had to spend it all in America, there wasn't a financial justification for continuing to locally produce this jet, and they ended the development program on it. Now, I don't know what that. Oh, that's some kid outside with a dirt bike. Now, they were selling them internationally, but moreover, like they were selling them to kind of like Latin American countries who would use them in their arsenal, but they were best known in Europe and even the U.S. to some extent as training jets. They were much cheaper to run, required much less spare parts, and were much less sophisticated. So, getting the training at speed was really good for them.
Actually, that's it. It's funny that you bring that up, because earlier, when we were talking about the tech development, the one program that the Israelis, everybody lauds the Israelis for the Iron Dome, but the one program that I give the most credit to the Israelis for is the F-35, because they literally were the only reason why the plane even got off the ground.
I know. They also are the only reason why it can actually fire the way it does. The F-35 basically fires outside of the pilot's vision range because
Mhm.
it doesn't need to get so close in order to hit. So they developed the helmet that uses the VR/AI that targets so a pilot knows what he's hitting when he fires from that far away.
Well, they're well, not just that, but they're also responsible for the overall electrical system of the fighter, to the
Right.
point where, like, General Dynamics was fully stumped on. Like, they could not figure out. It's similar to the German Puma, which is a armored fighting vehicle that Rheinmetall has been developing for years now. But due to the overall size of the vehicle and the layout of the internals and so on and so forth, they cannot produce enough power and run enough power through the vehicle to actually power all the systems in the vehicle. Period. End of story. And it was the same way with the F-35. And so then the Israelis came in and they were like, "Oh, hey, do this, this, and this, and you'll be good." And the F-35 actually got off the ground to the point where it's like, "Oh, we can actually go into production with this."
Yeah.
And it's hilarious to me that then, after the Israelis received the first batch of F-35s, when they landed in Israel, they immediately grounded them, ripped the power plants out, and put new power plants in that were better and more cost efficient on maintenance than the original power plants.
Well, there was a long time where there was a fear they were going to scrap the F-35 program because they just couldn't get it to run right, and then they got the Israelis on it and they fixed the problems with the avionics.
Oh yeah, no, and that's one of the key things that I really freaking hated about the F-35 program, because when I originally heard about the F-35, this was back in it was back in 2010. And they were starting to talk about it more and start actually revealing some details, some design stuff, like of the structure of it and so on and so forth. And it was like, okay. And then you start learning more and more about some of the developmental problems that had been having, and then you realize, oh wait, they've been working on this thing technically since 2001, 2002, when it was originally in its concept phase. They didn't even have a prototype airframe until 2006. And then by 2010, they were still very far behind on actually getting it flying properly. And it was just, it was, again, $80 billion for the development. And then when they finally finish building all the airframes that they plan on building, it's going to be well over 200 billion by the time they get there. I just want to point out, and I've pointed this out in a previous episode as well, the complaints that were had about the F-22 production line being restarted, the price tag for that was 193 billion to rebuild the production lines for the F-22, and yet by the time they're done with the F-35, it's already going to run well over what the F-22 would have been to just rebuild the production and then proceed to start building airframes again.
I mean, there's a lot of times though that when you start running numbers on advanced fighter aircraft, like most people don't know this. The B1, the B2 program, our most advanced stealth fighters that we basically have at the moment. When they did that development program, it cost something like 200 and something $billion to just do the development, and each one cost do you know how many we produced?
How many?
It was like 20, 23, 24, something like that.
21, and
21?
that's it. It was over. They never produced. They were never gonna produce another one. Like the 21 we have now are the 21 they produced, and that's it.
Well, and it's just like with the F-117, the Nighthawk. Same thing. They produced very limited run. I think like 4 or 5 of them all total.
Right, but I mean, like when we talk about these advanced jets, we act like they're still building them. They're not. Like the F-35 replaced all that.
Well, but my complaint overall is that the F-22, capability wise, is actually better overall. Like, overall flight characteristics, overall armament. Like the overall armament of the F-22, yeah, it can't carry some of the bigger bombs the F-35 can, but the F-35 is not really designed flight-wise to do ground attack, which is why I'm still an A-10 fan. But hey, it is what it is.
But I'm saying the F-22 was created, the program was put into place, in development for dogfighting, which nobody does anymore. And the F-22 also costs a fortune. So they said with the F-35, there's just no reason for it. So they ended the production.
All right. So I'm curious on that front. What exactly made those planes so expensive? Because if you say they only built like 21 and on a price of 200 billion, that's like what, $10 billion a plane? Like
They
where
also
does the
still charge $3 billion each for them.
All right. So like, where does the cost of that actually go? Is that just all markup because government, it's a government thing, so you can charge whatever the hell you want, or is there actually valid reasons to charge that much for a plane?
Well, think about it. You have to get this plane that you designed with a cross radar cross section of basically like a flock of birds. And you have to get it to the point where it gets in the air, can maintain speed, can be maneuvered, and can hold all the ordnance that you want. That's incredibly difficult, like incredibly difficult. And like a lot of times when they come up with these concepts, that's all they are, is concepts. It's not like they're going to go to grab some spare parts from other programs and start putting them all together.
Yeah.
Every single part has to be fabricated from scratch.
So it's
Yeah,
most.
this isn't like the Super Tweet, for example, where they literally took a civilian airframe and stuck guns on it.
Right. So you'd say then the cost is mostly development, not actually production. So like once they actually have the thing that works, then it's substantially cheaper than actually making it work.
Well, yes and no. The one issue is when they put a production line together for even the F-35, which they're still producing, the parts don't come like they don't have like a factory that produces them like they would, cars, where you have robots putting they still have to fabricate everything from scratch because building the automation to put them together would cost, probably in the trillions of dollars.
Yeah, yes, correct.
It's just they just know how to do it at that point. Like they're not trying new things all the time.
All right, so to move on to the next question, overall, in your opinion, given the economics and the apparent benefits of the relationship with Israel, the implications of the continued American involvement with Israel and then, the Middle East as a whole, like where do you kind of see that going as time goes on?
So I have a more nuanced view on this than most. I know me and Tom disagree on a couple fundamental things. I think America and Russia would be best served getting out of the Middle East. Like, yeah, sure, sell everybody weapons, who cares? But using the Middle East as kind of this proxy battleground of East versus West hasn't really served anybody's purpose. The problem is that it's always been based on the idea that Russian and American military equipment was generally parable. That even though Russia didn't have planes that were as good as America's, they had missile defenses that were much better than America's, and they had better ballistic missile technology and things like that. That all just turned out to be bullshit. Just like Russia has always done, they just lied about how good their stuff works. And whenever put to the test, they would just always have an excuse why they didn't turn it on right, or something like that. So I would think the best thing for them would be to just kind of step back and start looking at countries in the Middle East as allies, promote more peace treaties between Israel and their Arab neighbors, because other than the fake Arabs they call Palestinians, there's really no opposition in any Arab country to peace with Israel. I know they squawk about how it's not a good thing, but like they all want it. So it's just a question of, do they trust America to keep their promises? Because if they sign a peace treaty with Israel and they're doing it because they want to counter, let's say, Iran, right? If they feel like, because America's a really shitty ally to have, just so you know, for almost everybody, because they hardly ever stand by their word. They say they'll defend you tooth and nail no matter what, and then they just don't.
Wasn't it Henry Kissinger who said that like it's bad to be an enemy of America, but it's even worse to be an ally?
Absolutely. And
Yes.
he wasn't kidding either. He wasn't saying that like tongue in cheek. He was being very serious.
Yeah.
Well,
You know?
and one of the things, just to interject, one of the things that, I don't fully agree with the whole, Russian air defense being shit point of view. I've seen some data and I'm just like, okay, is it worse than Patriot? No, not by any long shot. But it also kind of indicates that maybe, just maybe, the quote unquote stealth designs for some of these fighter jets might actually be a lot better than we might have originally been led to believe. Because, like, for example, with the F-35, there was a lot of information that was coming out about the radar cross-section, a few leaks that were put out there that indicated the radar cross-section of the F-35 was a lot bigger than people were first initially to be led to believe. So I'm not going to completely agree with the whole AD thing, but one of the big things that I think is relatively important is the fact that you have two forces, the U.S. and Russia, that most certainly, like, the evidence is written across the board that they want to decouple. They want to get away from this crap because they're like, okay, this investment overall in the region is just freaking not nonsensical. So
I think that on the surface level, I think if you were to ask Trump or Putin or, some members of Congress, they would like to see less American involvement over here. But the true deep state of like the military industrial complex, they don't want to hear anything about it. Like, this is their bread and butter. And you know what? When they sit down the president, like, people act like they screw over Trump by like not giving him what he wants. That's not the case. They sit down with him and say, like, look, our best weapons are being developed there. Like, do you really want to risk that they're in 10 years willing to sell them to someone else because we're not willing to pay as much? And it's a complicated relationship. I think the best thing would be if they got away, but the whole crux of everything right now rests on Iran. If there's a peace treaty with Iran, American involvement won't end there anytime soon. But if there's what's it called? If Iran just either falls or Israel attacks and knocks out their nuclear program or anything like that, I think you'll see a much more likelihood that there will be a bit of disengagement, let's say. Because, that's one thing you're learning more every single day, that this whole hand-holding that America's been doing all over the world and dictating everybody's foreign policy, it worked for a while. It's not working anymore, and I think it's not working for both sides of the equation. Whereas it might not have worked for the client states before, or it did work and not for America. Like, I think now there's a general understanding that America needs to focus more on what's going on at home, and also the enemies they have in Europe, which is not insignificant.
Mm-hmm.
all right, well, then I want to kind of expand the question into that region a little bit. What do you think the European powers are thinking when it comes to this whole situation with, the U.S., Israel, Russia, Iran? What do you think their viewpoints are?
I think that when it comes to Ukraine and Iran, Europe wants to keep America and Israel and everybody else just as involved as they can be, because it makes them relevant, which they're not anymore. Like,
You're not going to get any disagreement from me on that.
Nope.
Europe needs to really start. I mean, granted, this has been an entire century now, where Europe and it goes around the world and causes problems, and then when it gets too big for them, they just call us in, and we clean up their messes. You know?
Well,
Right.
yeah, classic example, World War One.
Mm-hmm.
World
Yeah,
War Two.
World War One, World War Two, the Korea, Vietnam, like this is what they do. But there's less of an appetite for it because it was one thing when they went around and caused messes and we were all working together, but we had the stronger like army. But now they're just like hopeless welfare states that have no capability of providing for themselves anymore with the revenue they have, and we're just literally paying for their militaries.
Mm-hmm.
So any problems they cause, like we know it's going to be ours to clean up because they can't clean them up. And them trying to maintain this kind of relationship with us is causing them, like, they benefit from chaos around the world. They benefit from instability. So because it keeps America involved and they can keep their hands clean by funding both sides. So I think that this is an existential battle for America, that they need Europe to start growing up and acting like their own country.
Mm-hmm.
So to go into our next question, because talking about the whole topic of Russia, Israel, or America, Israel, Russia, Iran, you know, what do we have the ongoing negotiations, we have the ongoing talks that are being held in Saudi Arabia and Oman and so on and so forth. We got a lot of moving parts here,
Yeah.
and you know, I am more on the cautiously optimistic side when it comes to the topic, because it does seem like there's a genuine effort being made. There really does seem to be an actual genuine effort being made by all parties. What do you think the possibility of an actual entente being reached between all the parties involved? Yes, the other Arab nations are involved in this whole process, but these are the four big players in the overall issue. What do
The,
you think the
the
possibilities are?
the big issue with the countries like Qatar and to some extent UAE, but not really, is that they not only want, like, some of them have made the decision, like UAE. UAE's decided that it wants to be a financial hub. It realizes that Europe's, future as a financial hub is probably not as good. They're tired of people meddling in the market. If they can maintain the stability, they can make Dubai a real, financial hub. Um, Now, the other countries, there are plenty of them that are doing exactly what they accuse Israel of doing, is they're funding social systems in America to the point where, like, they're basically subverting them. Like, they give more to American universities, Qatar does, than anyone else. They give more to social justice movements. They obviously own Al Jazeera, and what they're doing is very harmful. And America's not really pointing that out much because they just don't care enough.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah. Talking to people about Qatar is it's like pulling teeth. It is absolutely horrendous how much people ignore Qatar.
and not, but they're more likely, if you even bring it up, to say, "Oh, the reason you're doing it is because you want to, detract from what Israel's doing." And it's like, no, I'll show you the hard numbers, and then they veer off into retardation, and it's not a conversation anymore. You
Yeah.
know, and this is an issue, but I think that America is gonna start getting involved less and less on a basis of allowing everyone to do whatever the hell they want. But then again, I mean, we only got Trump for 4 years, and he can only do so much. Like, this has to be an attitude that sticks here in a way that people see it as a problem, and we don't do the best job at telling people what's going on. We just keep telling everybody, like, no, we just have to stop China from being China, and when China's not that big of a threat. They're a bit of a threat to us economically, but they're not a threat to us like militarily, world influence. Like, in fact, they're probably a force for good to some extent in half the world. But the idea that America is going to maintain this relationship where it just lets anybody come in and use however much money they want to subvert whatever they want in America. Like, we don't want to turn into Europe. Like, no way, shape, or form.
Right.
So if the attitude persists, I think you're going to see the backlash persist.
So, what do you think the end goal is for Qatar in funding all this nonsense in America? Do you think, are they trying to achieve just some sort of foreign policy win, like hoping that gets us out of Israel, or do you think, or is it more just they're generally trying to destabilize America? Because you don't, when you think of Islam, you don't really think of social justice, right? So it's kind of odd the Islamists are funding all the, the trans shit and so on.
So now we can get into something I really have fun with. Okay, first of all, fundamental truth. Not a single one of these Middle Eastern countries gives a shit about Israel. Okay, they don't care about Israel surviving, not surviving. It's completely irrelevant to them. What they see in Israel is that they say if they defeat Israel, they defeat America. Okay, like, it means American influence in the Middle East is basically over because that's where their stronghold is. Right? Now, I have a co-host on Wednesday, and for years, whenever, like, you bring up, oh, this happens or this happens, he'll always go, it's all communism. Right? It's just the people that are doing it here just want communism. The left and the Democrats and all of them. But it's not. It's all Islam. Okay? Like, communists have this theory that they're basically going to use everybody around them as useful idiots, right? They'll get their policies accomplished by using people that just don't know any better. They don't realize they've become the useful idiots. That's why you see shit like Queers for Palestine and trannies for Palestine and stuff like that.
Chicken for
right?
KFC.
They're the useful idiots of Islam.
Yes.
Like, because they figure that when all's said and done and the world burns, that they'll just kill all the Muslims and make, communism work. But Islam has billions of people, resources beyond belief, and a bunch of spoiled kids from France and San Francisco are not going to be able to take them on. Okay, so, like, they're the useful idiots now. It's all Islam. Like, when these countries are funding the subversion here in America, it's to bring about Islam. When they're sending millions of refugees into Europe, it's for Islam. Like, this is what they want. And Islam is basically communism with a religious component, as opposed to, as opposed to being like crazy atheist. They find it easier to just not be crazy atheist and just be united around Islam.
Right. Now, you mentioned sending the refugees into Europe, and then I wonder, do you believe that they will be successful in Islamifying Europe? Because that process seems like it is much further along than whatever they're trying to do to America.
It is, that's a weird question, because it's not a weird question, it has a weird answer. Okay, if you look at the European population, the population of Muslims to natives is much lower than, like, America's only, I think, 65% white European.
Right.
Right? And in most European countries, it's like anywhere from like 80 to even 90. But the difference being is that, number one, almost all of the refugees in Europe are Muslims. Whereas here, they're mostly Mexicans and Middle Americans, and Central Americans and South Americans. Right? So if you consider, brown Mexicans and Central Americans and South Americans to be like non-U.S. Americans, then we're much further along than Europe. But the vast majority of people, they don't really care about like Mexicans and people like that. They care about gangs and drug companies, and drug cartels and shit like that. But like, nobody wants to see the guy who mows their lawn deported.
Yeah,
like, they really don't care.
And there's nothing inherent about being a Mexican that leads one into a gang, right?
Right. So the big issue that the West has right now, and this issue can't, like, I don't see it changing at all, is that we're not reproducing. So, like, all the time you hear people like Trump people say, and, all manufacturing should be brought back to America, right? The last time I checked was a few years ago. Then we had the data from a few years before that. there were 1 million openings for skilled labor positions in America. That's people who work in factories. You know, skilled labor. It means you don't work at Walmart, right?
Yeah.
1 million that went completely unfilled because nobody wants the jobs. There's a need right now for 750,000 truck drivers. Nobody filled the jobs. If we brought back manufacturing right now, there'd be no one to hire. And people go, well, if you pay them more, these jobs pay really well.
Yeah.
They pay much better than anything else anyone else in America's getting, except for, you know, STEM people right now.
Yeah, like
nobody wants them.
Just on that, just to drive that point home. Like I have a friend who is a truck driver. They make $80K a year driving trucks.
My father was a truck driver until he retired.
Right.
There are trucking companies right now that will pay you a $20,000 signing bonus. They'll pay for you to get your commercial driver's license at their driving school, and they'll pay you $60,000 to $70,000 a year to start. Mm-hmm. Right now, don't get me wrong; it's kind of a grueling life.
One of those companies in general, Swift.
Yes, well, Swift isn't as big as they were, but JB Hunt is the real big one.
Yeah, JB Hunt is also big.
But I'm saying, like, my father made a decent living being a truck driver. It's just brutal. Like, growing up, we saw my father like twice a month. You know, like it's brutal. It's really grueling. But I'm saying, if you're interested in money, why would you go work at Taco Bell for $20 an hour when you could go to JB Hunt and make real money? And after you get a couple years in, with the amount of truck drivers they need in this country, like after a few years on the road, you could easily go anywhere and say, I only want to stay local, and you'll be hired instantly. You know? So, and there's no one to fill the jobs. Nobody wants them. So we sit there and say, oh, it would be great if we deported every illegal in this country and kept it white and all of this and brought all this manufacturing back. There's no one to take the jobs. If they did that right now, our produce would literally rot in the fields. There'd be no one to pick it. And people say to automate, you can only automate so much, you know? And even then, you need people to fix the robots and fix all the picking machines and all that. So a lot of people live in a fantasy world where they're like, they feel like the immigrant population here is taking something from us, when in reality, like, they're kind of like our slaves. Mm-hmm. Like, they do our shitty work, and listen, I'm not pro-immigration. If it were up to me, we electrify the border and never let anyone else in. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying I'm also realistic to the idea that we also will not be a manufacturing powerhouse. We will still have to offshore quite a bit. I'm just fine with the Mexicans staying in Mexico and manufacturing there. You know?
Well, that was, just to expand on that real quick, you know, one of the things that I pointed out to people, because, you know, I forget whose space I was in earlier. What's her name? Esther, I think is her name, Halsey.
Galante?
Yes.
Yeah, she's a bit of a kook. Go ahead.
Yeah, she is. But she made a comment about, you know, getting manufacturing back here in the U.S. and yada yada yada, and I was like, well, no, it's not going to come back into the U.S. It's going to go to India or Mexico, because we can't bring it back here. We do not have the population by any fucking metric to do it. And on top of that, you also have to take into consideration, you know, the main reason why people don't want to go into these jobs. And it's funny because the left kind of took the mask off a little bit when they started being like, oh, you know, go work in the sock factory. It's because they want the easy labor jobs. Yeah. They want the jobs that are low intensity labor. That's what they want. And they don't want to work the high intensity labor jobs because they feel like it's beneath them.
I agree with you. And as I said, also, even if you could, if I said to you tomorrow, I really would love to go work at a factory, I want to make this much money, and all of my conditions were met, you're still not going to get people that want to move out to the middle of fucking Oklahoma where the factory is or anything like that to go work. There's nothing there for them. There's no, you know, nightlife. Like, they're not into getting married and having a community. They want to be single and have things to do. Yep. Like, it's a real problem. I mean, I did my master's thesis on this 20 years ago, right? The idea that in China, it costs, back at the time, it costs the average of $4.25 per hour per worker to bring a good to the U.S., right? To have it manufactured there, shipping, all of that, it was about $4.25 an hour. In Mexico, it's $2.22 an hour.
Yep.
Right? And we just never did it because we were like, honestly, the only thing stopping us is we were too afraid to take on the cartels. Like, we didn't want a war on our border, you know. But I've been saying this for years now. The cartels don't require us to defeat them by military means, right? We just do the same thing to them that we did to the Italian mafia. We give them a way to take their dirty money and make it legit. We tell them, like, look, if you're going to stay in, you know, being a drug cartel, we're going to hunt you down and kill you. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, you're facing a Tomahawk missile, or you're going to take that cocaine plant and turn it into a car manufacturing plant or a textile plant or something, and you're going to be a billionaire owning industry all over Mexico, but you're not doing any more of this drug shit or human trafficking or any of this stuff. I mean, there obviously will be holdouts that you have to hunt down and kill, but the vast majority of them will not want to spend their lives looking over their shoulder wondering when they're going to die. They would much rather go legit.
Real quick, just because you brought that up, that's exactly what happened here in Cleveland and Youngstown. Mob fucking central here in Ohio, Cleveland, Youngstown, and literally the feds were like, look, you know what, we're gonna turn a blind eye, go legit, do what you should be doing, and we're not gonna have a fucking problem anymore. And what did they do? They started buying businesses and started running legit, and, you know, finally, I think the last mob family that actually held out was officially, I think the entire family got arrested in like 2002 or 2003 or something like that in Cleveland. It was the last one.
Interesting.
Well, it took a while, but we showed them that with the RICO statutes, we were actually able to break them. That it wasn't going to be a case where they got 5 years for a murder and did easy time, that we were going to send them away for life, you know,
Yep.
and doing hard time federally. And we showed them that we could do it, that we were willing to implement it.
Right.
And again, we gave them the choice. We basically told them, like, go legit. You know, like, go buy businesses, go invest in stocks, go do whatever it is you're going to do. But enough of this gangland shit, like, grow up. And they did. That's why you don't hear about the Italian mafia anymore. You know, they all went legit. And we can do the same with the cartels in Mexico, but it has to be carrot stick. It has to be like, look, we're giving you these ways to go legit, but in case you didn't notice, like, missiles are falling on your colleagues' houses. There's no trials, no arrests. We're not sending in the cops. Like, if you're running a drug cartel, if you're a member of a cartel, we're coming to kill you. You know, and Trump made a big step. People didn't realize how big this step was. That by declaring the cartels terrorist organizations, a lot of people are like, now he can strike them with drones and shit and do all he wants. He always could do that. The American government never had a problem with finding a legal basis to go bomb people wherever the hell they want. What it allows them to do is go after their money. Okay, because they have to use the SWIFT system in order to get their money around the country, and we're very good at just stopping that shit. You know,
Right.
like, oh, you remember that $1 billion that you were sending to Panama? Yeah, it's in New York right now. Fuck you.
Yeah.
You know.
So
it's in the vault. It's in the vault below the Fed building. Good luck. Have fun.
yeah. So going back for a second, I wanted to ask you, being that you have a master's in economics, and that large scale manufacturing isn't coming back to the U.S., what do you think should U.S. domestic economic policy focus on?
There's plenty of jobs here already for both the brilliant class and the retard class. Okay, but I'm saying there has to be a realistic realignment in education, where if you see, like, somebody, you know, sitting in their desk in ninth grade eating their pencil and not knowing how to read or add, like, we have to stop trying to convince that person that if they try really hard, they're going to college.
Of course, you send them to the Marines.
No, those are crayons, not pencils.
Fair enough.
No, but I mean, going to the military is still always an option for people. But we developed this attitude around, you know, the 90s where instead of looking at things realistically, we started looking at things the way social media users look at things, right? Someone went, duh. I run numbers, and numbers say if you go to college, you make more money than someone that doesn't go to college, right? Well, what was college? College was always a place for rich people and smart people. Are you shocked that rich people and smart people make more money than dumb people and poor people? Like, this isn't rocket science, but somehow that magic piece of paper would change that, and now dumb people and poor people were going to be on par with rich people and smart people. And like I have relatives that are, what's it called, that are public school teachers, right? Like they would have kids come in that were in sophomores and or seniors, juniors in high school, and they sit down to like work on like what they're going to do after school. Now these kids couldn't read, they couldn't add, like I mean, just dumb as a brick. Half of them would say they were going into the NBA, right? Even though they weren't even on the basketball team in the high school.
Right.
And if they suggested that they go to Votech and learn how to weld or be a plumber or anything like that, they would get written up. And if they did it more than once, they'd get fired.
Really?
The only way they could recommend Votech was if the kid specifically asked for it, because otherwise you were holding the kid back. Like this is a kid who it should be your goal to get him to go to college, even if you somehow got him into college, he's just going to flunk out.
Yeah.
You know.
And to add on to that as well, one of the major problems that we're having in general, right now they're talking about how they're going to start requiring people to make payments on their student debt loan and whatnot. And it is hilarious to me because I got into a conversation with somebody and I'm like, I make the same amount of money as the average college graduate. And I never went to college.
I know plumbers that make more money than doctors. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Like,
you're correct. But the fact of the matter that I can say that, and it proves the point exactly that everybody going to college was not the right freaking mentality. But you also have to take into consideration the corruption that went into that, because all these school districts, the more college applicants they have, and the more acceptances they have, the more money the district gets. I remember when I graduated or was getting ready to graduate in 2013, which still can't believe it's been 12 years. But when I was getting ready to graduate, I was getting hounded by the guidance counselor to apply to college. And I had no plans to go to college whatsoever. At the time, I was going into the military. And I told the woman multiple times, I'm going to the military, period, in the story. Why do I need to apply for college? And finally, she lost her mind on me. And she's like, if you don't submit an application, then the school loses money. And then the mask came fully off. And I looked at her, and I was like, cool. And proceeded to say, screw you, I'm not applying, period, in the story. She tried to actually hold back my graduation because I was refusing to apply. And it was like, you can't do that, I'll sue you. And it was just, it's hilarious, the level of stupidity that these people will go to force everybody to try to go to college is absolutely retarded.
I agree, and in what makes the problem even worse is when the colleges saw all this opportunity because all these retards were going to be taking out student loans and spending tens of thousands of dollars to go to college, they started creating all these bullshit degrees that they could study for, like DEI and underwater basket weaving and all this stupid shit, so they could take their money even though the degree was completely worthless. Like if I finance a house, at the end of the day, if I can't pay for it, the bank can take the house and sell it. If at the end of the day I spent 50 grand or 100 grand to 200 grand, 500 grand on a college degree, and I can't pay for it, what does the lender get back? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to try to get us back on track a little bit, just because we kind of did get off into the weeds a little bit, just a wee bit. There was a question that got posed to me by somebody else unassociated with the podcast because I was talking to them and telling them that we were going to be doing this and whatnot, and they kind of posed the question because this had kind of floated around, and this is the last Israel-related question that I have for you, Halsey. The whole greater Israel thing. You know, there's opponents of it and proponents of it. And there's this whole idea that, oh, they're going to do it, oh, they're not going to do it, so on and so forth. You know, get into the mud a little bit, kind of explain what is the whole concept of greater Israel, and, you know, why should people be concerned about it or not concerned about it or whatever the fuck. Because, honestly speaking, I don't understand the subject well enough to comment on it personally, but, you know, the Groypers love talking about it regardless.
Yeah, I know, because it's one of those things. It's like the bring all the manufacturing fantasy back. It's the same thing. You know, oh, if we just brought all the manufacturing back to America, I would never have to work at Taco Bell. Well, guess what? You don't have to work at Taco Bell now. There's 10,000 factories in America that would hire you tomorrow, you know, and pay you really good money to push a broom. And that no, they would, you know, I want to work. If I'm going to go to work, I want to go to work at an iPhone factory, making $180,000 a year with full benefits and all that. It's like, okay, you're just a moron. Like, you're not able to look at things realistically, you know. Like, hold on one sec. I'm just answering somebody.
Oh, you're fine.
But the greater Israel thing has never been a thing. Okay? Like, the idea that Israel wants to control the land from the Euphrates to the Nile is so ridiculous, because even if they took that tomorrow and no death, no nothing, they took it, it was theirs, everybody accepted it. There's 7 million Jews there, man. How much land do you think they can actually, like, populate? Okay? Like, they wouldn't be able to occupy that much land even if they did want it. And nobody wants it. Israel has done nothing but, for the last 75 years, is trip over itself to give land to all of its enemies to just get them to leave them alone. Do you think it really, like, Israel could conquer Syria right now? Lebanon too. You know?
Right.
Well, and here's the reason why I asked the question is because, you know, we constantly have people talking about how, you know, the Jews run the world, and, you know, oh, you know, if they didn't do this, then why did this happen, and why was this person involved, and so on and so forth. And it just boils down to, you know, people, you know, confirmation bias. You know, they have a certain bias towards certain things, and then as soon as something confirms that bias, they're like, see, I told you.
Again, a lot of the shit they accuse Israel of, it's just projection and nonsense. It's a way to kind of, you know, blame them for something that they know isn't happening, but as long as they claim it's what they want, then they can accuse them of anything they want. You know, it's like, oh, well, they're doing this because they want greater Israel. Well, nobody's ever said that. It doesn't matter what they're saying. They're doing it. No, they're not. They haven't conquered any territory since the 70s. You know, oh, well, then why are they bombing Gaza? Because Gaza attacked them, declared war. Well, no, they want to take Gaza. Gaza's like the size of like half of New York City. Like, trust me, they're not expanding the empire into Gaza. You know, it's again, it's the same morons that say we need to just bring all manufacturing back to America tomorrow. They just don't realize you can't do it. So like it's a fantasy that no one's even talking about. It's not even like there's a group of lawmakers that are putting together the plan to bring all the manufacturing back to America. They know that no one's here to do it. They're not stupid.
You mean like with Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation?
No, that was a great example. That's Greater Israel. It was everything, no matter what it was. If it was bad, the Democrats said, "Oh, this is Project 2025." It's like, have you ever read Project 2025? No, but I know it's in there. Why? Because I saw my senator say it. Oh, okay.
So
and it's funny from my perspective. Real quick, sorry, Dale.
No worries.
It's funny from my perspective because I actually did read through Project 2025, and there's a lot of notations about, this is what we want, this is not what we're gonna get, basically. I love it. The Heritage Foundation straight up is like, this is what we want the president to do, and not that he's actually gonna do it. But go ahead.
Right. So I'm just wondering, what do you think the end goal should be with the whole Israel-Palestine situation, especially now after the whole Gaza war? Because it's like you do have 4 or 5 million people in these areas, and like if the war ends and they're still there, it's not like that's like the whole thing is gonna keep going on because now they're even more pissed because their city was leveled. And so like, how do you actually fix this without like just you can't push them out into other countries because no one wants them.
Yes, you can.
But those countries don't want those countries aren't going to take them.
Neither did all the countries that pushed out Germany didn't want all the Germans.
Wait,
that we pushed out after World War II. The Pakistan didn't want all the Muslims.
Wait.
Trust me, this has been done many, many times. It's been successful almost every time.
Weren't the countries that were pushing out the Germans, they were pushing out the Germans because they didn't want the Germans, so they pushed them into Germany, where all the Germans are?
I'm talking about after World War II, when Germans were all over the place. The country said, get out, we don't want you. The Germans didn't want to leave.
Right, but what I mean is they pushed them into Germany because Germany would take them. Right? Like, you don't have another...
They would take them. They had no choice. They were defeated.
Right. But, I mean, so the countries surrounding these areas aren't at... Like, it's not like Lebanon or, say, Jordan is defeated. They're not a party to the war. So, like, you can't...
Yeah, and there are times in life when you just have to look at people and go, I know that's not what you want, but that sucks for you.
I gotta kind of go with Halsey on this because at the end of the day, one of the things you can identify, because I kind of started looking into the whole Palestinian identity a little more, and I realized really quickly that it's like if you go up into northern Israel, it's either they're of Lebanese descent or Syrian descent, and then in southern Israel, they're of the Jordanian tribes or some Saudi tribe. And
no, but do you realize the entire country of Jordan was part of the British Mandate for Palestine? It was supposed to be the Jewish state. They imported those people from Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, Transjordania. Yeah, and I'm
like, there's no such thing as a Jordanian. There was no indigenous people there. They brought them in from Saudi Arabia because they were a rival tribe of the House of Saud, and they didn't want any fighting in Saudi Arabia.
Oh yeah. The Jordanians are a particular tribe. I just don't remember the name of the tribe.
They're called the oh my god, King Jordan is the
Hashemite.
Yeah. It took me a minute. I'm sorry. It's late. I've been up since 3. But it's the Hashemites. They brought them in. Like,
at
the time where they created when Israel declared its independence, none of the countries around them had existed for more than 2 or 3 years before that. This wasn't like all these countries were there and then Israel just was like, hi, we're here now. Like, there was nothing there. It was all the Ottoman Empire. Like, the idea that, like, Lebanese sovereignty is so sacrosanct that they can't take in more Arabs who are exactly like them in every way, shape, or form, speak the same language, same culture, everything. Like, somehow they have to stay in this little country the size of New Jersey, half of which is barren desert. Like, it's nuts. And sometimes when you spend decades waging war against a country, and that country says, we've had enough of your shit. It's time for you to deal with your own shit. You take them, you deal with them.
But,
right? When Gaza was lost in the 67 war, like when it was captured by Israel, it was captured from Egypt. It was part of Egypt. Now you're telling me the Egyptians can't take them back because they're a foreign people?
Well, the issue with Egypt is if you tried, isn't Israel just going to meet the attempt to push them in with tanks and or aren't they going to meet that with an army? Like, you could in theory push them into somewhere like Jordan, which doesn't have like what the fuck is the Jordanian army? But then don't you end up with something like, say, okay, you push them into this neighboring country, but then you're just gonna end up with Hamas in that neighboring country, and they're gonna keep doing the same thing.
Dude, the Sinai Peninsula, which is borders Egypt, which is part of Egypt and borders the southern Israel, right, is 3 times the size of Israel. They could cut out a third of it and say, here, nowhere near Israel's border, this is your country now. Every one of those Palestinians in Gaza that would lay down their life tomorrow for their country because they're Palestinians through and through, if Egypt were willing to open up the border and let them in, they would leave tomorrow. That's why they're always Israel cleared this part of the Gaza Strip. Now there's no more people there. They cleared there. They go wherever they can.
Yeah,
and every one of them would leave the Gaza Strip given the option.
No, I don't disagree with that. It seems like the bigger the country and the more powerful the country, the harder it is to just strong arm them pushing a population into them, right? Egypt could probably actually fight back,
Jordan,
but
yeah, they couldn't. And
they couldn't.
If Israel wanted to, Israel could wipe Egypt off the map tomorrow, and they wouldn't even break a sweat doing it. And the thing is, nobody wants war. They're not going to go to war. The only reason they're holding out is because they don't want the problem themselves. But if America were to come in and Israel were to come in and say, hey, guess what? We'll give you $100 billion if you want to take in all these Arabs. Egypt tomorrow would be like, no, we'll never do that. Sorry, I'm not looking at the border anymore. What are those millions of people coming through? Like, it's the only reason that it's not happening right now is because Europe doesn't want it to happen. Europe is the one who all of a sudden has found their nationalist fervor that the only place the Palestinians can ever be happy is in these 2 little parts of Israel. And because it's only the Europeans that are like dead set against them being transferred out. Everybody else knows it's the best.
You mean the Irish? You mean the fucking Irish?
Yeah.
No, the Irish are just, they might as well be Arabs themselves.
Dude,
I'm saying Britain and France are the only ones that want this to happen. Like, that are so like, no, they have to stay there. It's their national home. Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
No, it's not.
But
Shut up, you like.
yeah, the thing I'm having a bit of trouble understanding. Let's say you do successfully push them out into Sinai, into Egypt. Aren't you just gonna get like Hezbollah 2.0? Because you still have this population of low IQ crazy people who are hell bent on your destruction.
Yeah, but you noticed that Hezbollah 1.0 wasn't that hard to beat?
Yeah. Well, but
there are times where it's much better to fight people that are outside your border than people that are inside your border and are your problem.
Sure, but I mean, it's beaten for now, but the problem seems like it's not fully done. It's just kind of been pushed back into later after the people...
No, what you're missing, though, is the dirty little secret that no one's willing to say, but is 100% true. The Gaza Strip and the West Bank, as its own country, are completely unsustainable. They're not capable of hosting the population that lives there now. They're resource barren. They have nothing. Yes. The West Bank is completely landlocked. It has no access to ports. So are you telling me this little area that's about the size of Manhattan Island, okay, is going to become its own country, responsible for its own defense and providing its own electricity, gas, water, everything in a place that has none of those things for millions upon millions of people? And they're not going to ever want to expand out, ever? Like, what are they going to do? Build up?
My issue is less with just getting them out as more as it is with more, okay, but you're still, like, is there any plan to then... Because they're still there and they're still insane and they still want to kill you. So if you move them a bit further...
it's called good fences make good neighbors. 80% of Jordan is completely unpopulated. 80%. And it's something like 12 times the size of Israel. Cut them a little piece. Here, that's yours.
Halsey, did you just say that good fences make good neighbors?
Yeah.
And bad neighbors make good fences.
I know. I was wondering when you were going to laugh.
Right.
But I'm just saying, it's... The thing is, when a population declares war on you and you win, you get to dictate the terms. They have not stopped declaring war on Israel since 1964.
Yes.
Enough is enough already. Like, I was there in Israel when the buses were blowing up in the street. One blew up right outside my balcony. Killed 100 people. Kids, babies, just blown up on a bus. Right? Like,
enough is enough. Like, people don't have to live this way, and in fact, the Arabs don't want to live this way any more than the Jews do.
Right.
It's just that right now they're both being used as political pawns, and this chaos is good for everyone in Europe. So they keep it going. It's also good for some of the Arab countries because they can claim, oh, we don't have to help our own people. We care too much about the Palestinians.
Right.
You know, the answer is they have to go. They have to go somewhere else and make their fortune and become their own country. They can hate Israel all they want. They can develop weapons and try to destroy Israel, do whatever they want. They just need to do it elsewhere. This is the relationship is over. It's not working out. So, and there's nothing that can be declared. If they declared tomorrow, you know what? Fuck it. Let's give them everything they want. Let's give them 100% of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, and Gaza Strip. I guarantee you, if they offered that to the Arabs tomorrow, you know what they'd say? They'd say no. Because they've demanded all along that any peace deal must include the right of return. The right of return means that any Palestinian, Arab, and their descendants anywhere in the world, of which there's, I think, 9 million, has the right to move back to Israel as a full citizen if they want.
Right.
Which would mean at the end of Israel, by the way, because they could just vote Israel out of existence the next day.
Right.
And they've said that any peace deal that doesn't include the right of return, they will reject.
All right, so moving on, because I think this is actually a really good point to move on. So, Islam and communism. So you touched on it earlier, and I loved that you touched on it organically like that. The link between the two, because, you know, a lot of people, I've heard a lot of pro-Israeli crowd bring it up, how, you know, the quote-unquote Russians have previously supported the Arab nations and so on and so forth. And it's like, okay, the Soviet Union is not the Russian state, but, you know, okay. But the overall link between the two, are you seeing that? Or am I crazy? Or, you know,
the Soviet Union was all about an ideological revolution that was exported around the world. When the Soviet Union died, that revolution just fed on itself. It just didn't have a home base anymore. And sort of like fascism was kind of like communism, but it was for nationalism, whereas communism itself was like supposed to be without borders and, you know, worldwide movement. Fascism just took the socialistic aspects of communism and just made it nationalistic, right? Islam takes the every other part of communism that exists and just does away with the atheism of it. It just makes it focused on religion, because that was always the problem of communism, is that you were never going to convince people that are religious to just think that God is ridiculous, right? So Islam and communism are generally the same thing. Like, there really is no difference.
So, just
Okay.
on the, how would you define communism? Because, like, when I think of Islam, I don't really think of an economic system where, you know, there are no, you know, the quote unquote workers own the means of production and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and has that ever actually happened in communism either?
No, but I mean, it doesn't seem like their economic system is ideologically very similar to communism or socialism. It just seems
It's completely similar. It's just that you're talking about countries that are ridiculously poor. And the only communist systems that have money are ones that basically have adopted capitalism.
Yes.
Like China.
Yes, exactly.
So, you know, they're just authoritarian capitalists.
Right.
You know, Islam is the same. Islam's no different. Every dollar you make is given to you by the state. Like, you work for the state owns everything. And then the rich people keep the vast portion of it, and the poor people get paid nothing. And when they get paid, they have to give 10% to the mosque. You know? I'm telling you, if you look at the systems in the Soviet Union and the systems in early China and compare them to Islamic countries around the world, there's no difference. You want, other than one's religious and one isn't.
And okay, so basically, you're saying it's not just a link; it's literally they're the same. So
They're exactly the same.
You know, and I can kind of get down with that, simply because of the next thing that I want to bring up, and that is the American Communist Party. Now, you had a really fun quote unquote debate with what do the other communists call him? Infracel?
As Al-Din.
No. The other communists, like the non-ACP communists, they refer to him as Infracel.
Yeah.
And but yes, Hazaldin, that's his new name that he's trying to go by. Apparently,
And his buddy Jackson Hinkle. They're both the American.
Just real quick. Apparently, Hazaldin is a new thing within the past year. He's always gone by infrared, and he just recently adopted the name Hazaldin.
Is that his actual name?
No. I forget what it is, but his nickname is Haz or something like that. Yeah, it's weird, but
He was also born in a Muslim family.
Right.
Yes.
Do we know what his actual name is?
I
Hazaldin.
Oh, all right. So it is.
That's his
pseudonym.
Yeah, that's his pseudonym.
Oh.
His actual name, you'd have to look him up. He's got a wiki page. His wiki page is actually the same wiki page for the ACP. But so first, I want to ask your opinion on the American Communist Party, and then the potential threat that they pose due to their association, very clear, direct association with Hezbollah and other organizations across the world that, they very blatantly associate with.
The issue with the American Communist Party and all of these weirdos is, and no one knew this, because I didn't bring it up during the debate because I said I wouldn't. When we were setting up the debate, which I thought wasn't even going to happen, he had asked that we not discuss religion at all. He didn't want to get into the Jewish versus Islam thing, and I knew what he was doing, but I just figured I didn't care because he was going to sound ridiculous one way or the other. But he knew that I was just going to bring up that he's not a communist. He's not like a Rusky, right? He's just an Islamic fundamentalist, and this is his way of introducing Islam to all of these retarded, democratic, spoiled white kids that are willing to go out and fight for communism because to them they hear, oh, I don't have to work, it's not, it's just Islam. That's all it is. It's just Islam.
All right, and threat analysis.
Why do you think that the two leaders of the American Communist Party, Hazaldin and Jackson Hinkle, can't stop going to every Islamic shithole around the world and putting on mosque rags and talking about, the glory of Islam?
Is Jackson Hinkle a Muslim?
No. He just seems to have never met a Muslim he won't hold the balls of.
So, using your counterterrorism expertise, give me a threat analysis on the ACP. Threat, non-threat, just in general retards. What's your take?
No, I'm telling you, you can see the difference with just Hazaldin and Jackson Hinkle, right? Jackson Hinkle is your typical spoiled white Bernie bro who actually loves the idea of communism, right? And he thinks that if he just sucks Islam's dick hard enough, that sooner or later, when the two of them win, communism and Islam, that the American communists and the white people will just, kick them all out and have their communist utopia. Hazaldin sees Jackson Hinkle as the same thing, just this retard who doesn't realize he's being used to spread Islam.
From your assessment of Hazaldin, does he seem like an intelligent person, or is he also an idiot? Is he an intelligent bad guy, or
he's smart enough to know what he's doing? I will say that the things he was saying in the debate were so ridiculous, they would make you think he's a retard, but he's doing that on purpose, because he's appealing to retards.
Ah, right.
But he knows what he's doing. There's no doubt about that.
So, what I'm taking from that is half a threat and definitely a good, healthy mix of retard.
Yeah, but with enough foresight to know that the purpose of communism and Islam itself is to foment revolution around the world and cause instability, which then Islam slash communism is the answer to, and that's what both of them are doing.
Okay, so I need to kind of throw a little bit of an extra in here then in regards to that. You know, you said earlier that, you know, communism doesn't have a home anymore.
I said
You
a
know,
home base.
and huh?
I said a home base.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. They don't have a home base. Do you think that they're trying to set that up here in the U.S. because
No.
it's okay? Where do you think they're trying to set it up?
I don't think they are. I think they see it much better as a disorganized thing where every country has its own kind of thing it does to try to push the message, because the Soviet Union collapsed on itself from exporting revolution all around the world. They didn't have enough money to feed themselves, yet they were funding revolutionary movements all over the world, right? And that's what caused them to collapse and turn into the Russia of today, which would be a disaster for Islam itself and for communism itself. So I think they see it right now as just like groups of, kind of dumb, idealistic people that are of the bourgeois class, that they don't have to tell them what to do because they're dumb enough that they're just going to do what they do, which is just cause problems.
Right.
That's where the whole like NPC meme comes from, is these kind of people.
Do you think that there are enough of these people to, at least in America, where this might actually become a problem, like a big problem, or is it just the fringe idiots being fringe idiots?
Over time, it's definitely going to be a big enough problem because we're not having enough kids. So
right.
as we have less and less kids, there's less and less jobs like to be done because there's not enough people to take them. And the spoiled kind of white kids, the same ones that are saying we need to bring all the manufacturing back here so I'll have a job, right? Like they don't actually want to work, and communism gives them that ideological bent where they don't have to work. They could just sit around and get welfare all day.
Right.
So I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, but I think that politics is always a pendulum. And I think that the generation we're seeing now that is so lazy and retarded, I think you're already starting to see it swing to the other direction. And I think the biggest problem is, and Warhound's heard me say this 1,000 times, but I'll say it again, is that people love to talk about the failure of globalism, right? They say the globalism was this colossal failure because look at how it's led to all these fucked up movements and all these problems around the world. The issue with globalism was not that it was a failure. It was that it was a resounding success. We're working without a net at this point. No one knows what to do because historical models don't count. At the turn of the 19th century, right, 1900, 80% of the world's population lived in poverty. Right now it's at 10%.
Yeah.
Okay, like our problem now is not that we're finding enough food to feed people. Our problem is stopping people from putting the food in their mouths and killing themselves with it.
True.
Okay, like in fact, like because diabetes and heart disease, these are what's killing everyone right now, not starvation. Like when you hear people like Klaus Schwab talk about you'll eat the bugs and live in the pod, he's not working with a model that he could say, look, this worked here, or it didn't work here, or this worked here. No one has any clue what they're doing. No one knows how to deal with this level of scarcity. Like we don't have starving people anymore. The only reason people can't buy everything they want is just because we haven't figured out a way to give them the money to do it. But there's more than enough wealth to encompass everything in the world at this point. So do I think that the Communist Party is going to make it, or the Republican Party, or this generation or that? I don't know, because I don't think anyone does. I don't think anyone knows how the systems are going to adapt to this newfound idea that everybody is kind of okay. Like, yeah, there's still parts of the world that are fucked up, but usually they're fucked up because we've made them fucked up. Like, the reason that people are still starving in Africa isn't because there isn't enough food there. It's because there's no roads to get it to the people that need to eat it.
Right.
Okay? Like,
Actually, I would like to interject on that point. Look at the response towards Burkina Faso when Burkina Faso announced that they had just brought their first cannery online.
Look at the response to that. And it was absolutely hilarious to me because, food is a big thing about in my mind, because I love cooking. I love learning about the history of food and so on and so forth. And what made me freaking just die laughing when I was seeing the responses to this was people didn't understand how important canning food was. They just didn't understand it. And it was like, holy shit, guys. How are you going to alleviate the starving in Africa if they can't get the food there because the food spoils before it gets there? Mm-hmm. Like, that's what's so important about canning. That's been an essential function. Like, canning was one of the biggest upgrades in preventing starvation in the world. And it was just absolutely hilarious. It was like, what the hell, you people are retarded.
So, but I think back to what the original question was. I think the hardest thing that anyone has figured out what to do with right now, and we're right smack in the middle of it, whereas I don't know if this is even going to be slightly figured out in our lifetimes. No one knows what to do with the internet. Like, the internet is where we do our whole lives now, and there's nothing healthy about it at all, other than some of the things that are like more convenient. Right. Like, it's cool that I can pay all my bills online, but it also sucks that I probably haven't seen fresh air in 3 weeks. Like, people don't date anymore. People don't meet their neighbors. People don't care about their community. Like there's a reason why this whole tranny thing blew up recently. And it's because normally, like, there aren't that many trannies out there. And if you had one in your town, like, he had two choices. He either kind of knocked it off, which most of them do anyway, or he was one of those guys who moved to San Francisco and, like, blew people behind dumpsters until he could afford an apartment. Right? Like, there just wasn't that many of them to care what they thought. Like, if that was the life you wanted to live, we weren't going to stop you, but we weren't going to support you in it. But the problem is now on the internet is that all the trannies can unite and get very, very loud, even though there's not a lot of them.
Yep.
And you have no necessity to blend into your social surrounding, because if people don't like you in your town because you're an obnoxious asshole, right, like the Groypers, then you could just go online and find all your friends there and live your entire life never speaking to someone in your town. This is going to be a massive shift that I don't think we've even begun to address. I think you're starting to see now the negative effects of it, in that my Gen X, where I'm like the tail end of Gen X, we didn't grow up with the internet. Like, it came around when we were younger, but it wasn't like it is now. Or cell phones. Like, I didn't get my first cell phone until I was out of college. Right? Like, my generation was fucked enough from all the technology. But now you're seeing the results of the millennials, that they're just not getting married and having kids. Because they grew up in a world where everything was online, and they just never bothered to meet each other and bond up and build societies. Like, and the Zoomers are even worse.
Yeah, some of the stuff I've seen about the Zoomers, especially, and even, I'm not sure if they're still Zoomers. I think the new one is now called Gen Alpha, where it's like, if they're not holding a screen all the time, they're experiencing like massive anxiety and other detrimental mental effects. That's gonna be a real fucked up generation.
For sure, especially considering they're going to school and not even making friends there.
Yeah.
They're bringing their friends with them to school. Like, people refer to their best friend who lives in California that they've never met. I know people that have had a boyfriend/girlfriend for a year or two and they haven't met. They're planning on it eventually because they want to get married and they're in love, but they haven't yet.
You see, and that's the hilarious part for me, because like for example, the past two girlfriends that I've had, and Halsey, you've met Poe, so the second one of this, I met technically both of them online. But in the case of one of them, she lived up in Detroit, not that far of a drive. It's only a 3-hour drive from where I'm at. But then Poe she's originally from Canton, so she's 45 minutes south of where I live. So it's like, oh, it was a little different for me on a personal basis, because it was like, it wasn't like, oh, hey, this person lives out in freaking California, Washington, so on and so forth. It was like, oh, hey, this person's kind of in my neck of the woods. And being able to disassociate the online from real life, like, I had to learn how to do it, to be completely frank. Like, when I was younger, like in my very early 20s, like 21, 22, I was definitely, of that group that was heavily invested online. But then at about the time I was 24, 25, it was like, I like normal people way more than I like people online. I'm gonna go hang out with people. It's like, fuck this shit.
Right.
So, and I think that's going to be one of the most important things in regards to that whole topic. Being able to teach people how to disassociate both sides. Like, I you, all three of you guys, I've never met any of you in person, but I do consider you guys friends, and I do like you guys quite a bit, because there's a lot of intrinsic interest, and there's a lot of things that we're definitely into together as a whole. And Halsey, you're actually I need to ask you something, Halsey, after we're done recording. But
yeah, I only got about 15 minutes left, so
okay. But we're gonna have to teach people how to disassociate online. It's kind of like with the reactions to Poe on Twitter, and I think this is a great example of this. The number of dudes that will just fucking lose their shit when they see Poe, and they're like, "Oh my god, why do you look like that? Oh my god, you're ugly." Blah blah blah. And it's like, my immediate response to people is, "Oh, have you been spending too much time on Instagram? Mm-hmm. Have you not seen a real woman in a while? Right. What's going on?"
Well, you see, bro, like, I'm of the generation where, now I can be old and say this, I'm of the generation where I'm screwed the other way, right? Like, when granted, I graduated high school when I was 15, and I started college, right? But the day I turned 18, I could dream of nothing more than getting the fuck out of my parents' house as quickly as humanly possible. I didn't care how many hours I had to work. I didn't care how shitty my room was going to be with however many roommates I had to take. I didn't care if I had to sell my car and drive a piece of garbage. Like, I had to get out of my parents' house because I was not going to bring girls back to my parents' house. Like, that is pathetic. And everyone I knew was like that. Like, we were the opposite of what's going on now. Our parents were begging us to stay for a little while and get on our feet. And we were like, fuck you. 18 hit. Like, hey, I'll be calling. Don't worry. There's a payphone up the street. I'm sure one day I could afford a phone in my house. But like, and literally on 18 birthday plus one day, we were at every bar, coffee shop, fucking social event we could be at to try to meet women. Like it was like, okay, we're free now. Like, this is the world. It's our oyster. Let the hunt begin. And that doesn't exist anymore. So I don't like when I have these fucking Zoomers talking to me in some of my spaces and stuff like this, and I see they have no interest in this whatsoever. I don't know what to say. Like, I can't be like, listen, you're 19 years old. You should be trying to fuck anything that moves right now. Like, when you walk into a friend's house, the fish should stop swimming. Like, seriously, like, what are you doing with your life? Like, why are you online right now if you haven't gotten laid like twice today? Like, why are you online at all? Like, why have you even checked your email?
I got an excuse. My girlfriend's pregnant.
But I'm saying, yeah, but you had to get that way somehow, my friend. Like, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just saying. So I can't, like, advise. Like, I don't understand it. To me, it's over my head. I don't understand how people don't have that desire, like, naturally.
And that's the thing with my generation, especially guys like me, and really I should step more into that arena. The problem I have is that every chick that I have ever been with, and I just love how we derailed into this topic. Every chick I've been with has fallen into my lap. It's been on accident. It's like I'm not particularly going out and looking for somebody, and then it's just like, oh hi, I'm interested in you. Oh, okay. Okay, I guess let's go. Let's go on a date. That's just how it's usually gone for me. And so,
Bro,
that's
I've
the
been
problem
like that
I
since I was 15. I'm not the best looking person. I'm not the richest person. I just have never had an issue in that department. Like when everyone's in like Raylan's space and they're like, oh, I do this and I do that and I get all these girls and stuff. Like, I'm not gonna sit there and like I'm 40 fucking I'm 48 years old. I'm not gonna sit there and like start bragging about like how many DMs I get and shit like that. But like, I'll put my numbers up against anybody any day. And trust me, like it wouldn't even be close. You know.
it's always fun to do that though.
Right, but I think that's part of who we are. Like that's how we were growing up. Like I'm telling you, I went to college when I was 15 years old. I went to the like only place on the planet where being smart was attractive to women. So like I walked in, I never learned game. I just walked up to like every girl I saw. I was like, "Do you want to go out tonight? Do you want to go out tonight? You're really hot. Do you want to go out tonight?" And it just worked. Like people were like, "Well, he's not running game on me. This works." And like it just like people weren't looking for commitments. You went out on lots and lots of dates and you hung out with people.
Yeah.
And you went out and got retarded drunk and didn't know what you were doing. Like I talk to people about stuff like that now and they're like, "Why would I do that? That's degenerate." You're like, "What?"
Yeah, and
Like-
also I think with especially the younger generations now, there's like a especially with young men, there's like this fear of rejection that almost, it seems like it never existed in older times. It's like they don't want to ask anyone out because they're terrified they'll say no. It's
But
like,
how can you be upset about not getting something that you didn't have in the first place?
indeed.
You walked into the situation with nothing. If you
Yes.
walk out with nothing, you
Nothing
have
changed.
not lost anything.
Yes, nothing changed.
So what? Like if
There's
she
only
said
upside.
no, what do you be like? Oh my God, I've lost like my pride and soul. And no, you went into the situation with nothing. You came out with nothing. Try to increase those odds. You know, like
Actually, real quick, I just want to point that out because you said the exact word that I was thinking there, pride. You know, people think that it's a humiliation to get rejected. It's like, no, it's how you conduct yourself after the rejection that matters. Because at the end of the fucking day, if you act like a imbecile and you start acting all pouty and all that shit, then you're humiliated. But if you just go like, oh, okay, and then walk the fuck off, your pride's still intact.
Yeah.
So it's like, what did you lose, bud? What did you lose?
Nothing.
exactly. So it's like I just don't like. I also see that like people are not willing to walk up to girls, and like I know they love to blame this on women, which I've always found kind of humorous. But guys are not willing to approach women unless they're like tens. Like if they had a girl that was like an 8 that was interested in them, they'd be like, no, I can't do that. Like my online friends would make fun of me. It's like,
I hate that shit so much.
bro, who the fuck cares? Like, look for someone you're into. Like, I mean, I get when you're 16 that you only want to bang hot chicks or whatever, but I'm saying like, you'll find that that as you get older, you'll find the women that are attractive are the ones that are loyal and have like you at your back. Like the looks part is something that becomes mental. Like, I have never in my life thought that like anyone has gotten uglier from having kids or putting on weight or anything.
I'm gonna use myself as an example real quick. You know, across the board, like I have to look for, and this is a problem that a lot of people have, is that they don't understand their own like mentality and like who they are. So they think, oh, I need to just bang hot chicks. But then I'm sitting here and I'm like, bro, I need a chick that's able to handle my crazy. If I try to date somebody who can't handle my crazy, it's not going to end well. That's the reason why me and the last chick I was talking to before I got with Poe didn't end up working out, was because it was very evident that my brand of crazy does not jive with her. And it's like that's why I'm very picky about the individuals, because I need a personality that jives with me, not the looks. It's like, as long as she's not a 3, I don't care, but a 5 or a 6, no problem. Like,
Right.
no fucks given.
All right. Chemistry
Yeah, I
is
don't
much
even-
more important than looks. You actually have to.
Bro, you should have seen. I got on my soapbox the other day. I had a friend that wanted to like go meet up with this girl, and he was asking me for advice and blah blah blah. And I went on my soapbox and I started talking. I said, "Bro, you have to understand something. Women are nuts. Okay, there are 2 types of women out there: crazy ones and those that try to hide it. The ones that hide it are the worst ones because they're liars by nature. Okay,
Yep.
they're the ones who will divorce, rape you, and take your kids, and blah 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 blah. Like, they're the problem. Embrace
You're
the
right,
crazy.
Halsey.
Like
Yes.
I'm saying, embrace the crazy. If you're expected to bring the money, she's expected to bring the crazy. Like, get some girl that's gonna, like, if she finds a hair in her soup at a restaurant, is gonna go back and like kick the fucking chef in the balls. And then, like, you're gonna have to calm her down because she's crying because she thinks she embarrassed herself in front of the whole restaurant. Like, embrace the crazy. Like, not the mental illness. I'm not talking about someone's gonna burn your house down with you in it. I'm talking about, like, it's
The
fine.
impulsiveness.
Right,
The
like,
impulsiveness.
yeah, like, find someone who's crazy. You just fucking, it makes you nuts. Like, it's not the nuts like you want to punch her in the face. Nuts that it's like, I'm into this. Like, I can handle this kind of crazy. Like, yeah, let's make lots and lots of little that person. Like, I'm just saying, like, the more you're trying to find some stable, trad, religious, like, that never thought anything dirty in their lives and would never ever raise their voice in public, the more you look for that, all you're finding is really good liars.
Bro,
Okay.
no, okay. Real quick, just on that topic. I love how the jokes about girls that went to Catholic schools was always that they were freaky.
Yes.
Bro,
And I love how people are like, I want a religious trad woman. And I'm like, you do realize that there are jokes that fucking revolve around religious women.
So, fun story here. My last ex I had before being with my wife was one of those. Well, she wasn't really Catholic, but her parents were, so they made her go into the Catholic schools, and she was studying at this prestigious Catholic university in the U.S. I think it was in Ohio, Steubenville or something. Anyways,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Yep.
So many fucking pregnancies in that school. So many.
Oh, yeah.
bro, my best friend since I was 11. And I don't talk to her much anymore just because she doesn't live near me, but, like, I would still consider her probably my best friend, right? Went to Catholic school, and her father was the chief of police of Newark growing up. So, like, big city Italian chief of police. So this girl was fucked from both angles in that she went to a religious school, and her father was a cop. The fact that she only was on the pole for a couple years, like, is a stroke of genius. Like, she redefined insane in a way that you couldn't imagine, and she didn't even see it. She just thought it's like, oh well, I grew up in such a repressive environment. Now I'm free. It's like, no, honey, you're a whore. Like, straight up, like just embrace it. Like, just be cool with it. Like, whatever. It's fine. Like, people will judge you based on what you think you are, not what society cares. Like, just be like yourself. And she's always been. She wanted dreadlocks. She got dreadlocks. She wanted this. She wanted that. She did it because she just doesn't give a fuck. And she says she has a grown daughter. She's had a good life. She has a I don't know if they're actually married, but she's had a boyfriend for like 20 years. So, like, I don't know if she just believes in the whole, like, marriage thing because she's not religious anymore. But she's happy. She's healthy. She has a career she loves. Like, she embraced the crazy like you're supposed to do. Like, there's nothing wrong with embracing the crazy and being honest about yourself. That's why people have such a hard time in, like, even in the general chats or in the spaces they have a really hard time debating me, not just because I know what I'm talking about, because I don't make shit up. If you ask me a question, I'll just answer it. Like I'm not embarrassed by who I am. I don't care. Like,
Right.
what am I? So, oh my God, you're so fat. It's like, yeah, I'm about 5 pounds over my target weight. Like, really not. Sorry. Like, you know, oh, you don't work out enough. I go to the gym for an hour a day and I fucking blacksmith for 3 hours a day. Trust me, I get plenty of exercise. Like, I don't care. People ask what I'm into. I tell them what I'm into. I don't feel the need to lie to people and try to keep up an image. I think it's stupid. So it's like, and it makes people nuts because everybody else does the exact opposite.
Yeah.
But I think that this lecture I gave, I'll tomorrow, if you remind me Warhammer, I'll take a I'll take a screenshot of it and I'll send it to you. I was giving this guy rules. I'm like, this is what you do. Embrace the crazy. You love the crazy, but you have to understand something. You have the crazy, you embrace the crazy, but the bills get paid. Okay? She can be crazy and love you and be the fire of your life, but if the electricity's getting shut off, you're done. Her crazy is going to now focus on you, and that's bad. Secondly, like, if she wants something, she gets it. And she doesn't get it by you shirking your responsibilities and, like, as I said, like, not paying the car insurance and, like, taking her on a trip to Djibouti or something like that. You get a side hustle. Do whatever you got to do. She wants something, give it to her. Because you know why? She'll reward you. Nothing wrong with that.
So,
And thirdly, if the word simp comes into your relationship, you're with the wrong person and it's time to go. Unless it's a joke.
What do you mean by the word simp? Like, if you start saying that you're simping, or if she says you're simping, what do you mean by that?
What I'm saying is that the term simp is it used to at least mean a person who just can't shut up about a girl online that he has no chance of getting.
Ah.
Okay, so like he's online in her mentions and her DMs everywhere, just talking about how great she is and beautiful and smart. He's never met anyone like her, even though she's never given any indication whatsoever that she'll ever even have a phone conversation with him.
Right.
That's a simp, right? But if someone's like, oh, you can't ever be nice to your woman, like you shouldn't buy her shit or say nice things to her because she's going to start thinking you're a simp. It's like, no, that's why you're alone.
Right.
Person telling me this.
Yes.
Like, that's like I have a girlfriend and you jerk off to a picture of some girl that you asked for online that you've never met. And probably it's not even her picture.
Yeah. Fun fact. Yeah. Just today on Twitter, I was called because I was telling them I was married, I was called a simp by someone who literally had the word incel in their name. It's like,
bro, embrace the crazy. Someone
Yeah.
calls me a simp. I'm not a simp. I'm the simp.
yes.
I am the simpiest simp that you've ever met because
bro, I have it in my Twitter bio for a reason.
Like I'm saying your words mean nothing to me. You want to call me a simp because you think you're insulting me? I'm not just a simp. I'm the simp. I am the simpiest simp that ever walked this planet, and that's why I have a girlfriend and you don't.
Basically.
That's why we have children and you
Yeah,
don't.
exactly. I have 5 of them. They're great. You know what I'm saying? It's awesome. And you know why? Because I don't listen to people like you. That's why. I don't care about your opinion. You're an incel online. I have a beautiful family. Like, results count for something, asshole.
Yes.
So, okay, guys, I really got to run. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
No
was
worries.
about to say.
That's a pretty good place to end it, honestly.
Yep. Real quick, Halsey, before you jump out, I'd like to talk to you real quick.
Can you do it tomorrow, man? I really have to run. I'm already 5 minutes over.
Okay. If you need to go, then go ahead.
Just remember, I'll be around all day tomorrow. So just holler.
Okay, got that.
All right. Take
Okay,
care.
cool, man. Thanks, guys.
Have a good one, man.
Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interview with Halsey.
that was fun.